Welcome back to the channel. It's been a minute. It's been several weeks. Had a lot going on with work. Traveled down to Florida a little bit for work. And then before that, we had a big go-kart race for my boy down in Missouri by the Ozarks. It was a big money race. So it took a couple weeks to get ready for that. And then we went down there and raced. He won a race, $750 to win one of the races. So super proud of that. But we went in the next day. It was a 3-day event. We went into the second or third day, and he hit the wall and had a pretty bad wreck. So kind of took a couple days for that, kind of recovered from that, and trying to figure out what we're going to do from there, because flat carts are just too dangerous. And we decided that we're going to turn his flat cart into a wing cart. So I was working on that for a little bit. And then, you know, just got caught up with the weather. I really didn't feel like doing much in the shop. It was so cold, snowy, warm, cold. I just kind of over it. So, you know, I just kind of took a little bit of time for myself too the last weekend. So now we're getting back into it. So where we left off is we got the trans mounted. We got the engine mounted. And then we were lowering the cab down. And when we were lowering the cab down, the firewall was hitting. On the injection pump and some of the other stuff, so we can see a little bit of the inside cab. So fits really good, fits a lot better now, but right there the firewall, we had to trim a little bit off the left hand side and a little bit off the top. So I went ahead and did that while the camera wasn't rolling, because it was just a little bit. Doing a little bit in the shop. I had a couple projects come up, so I threw the hood on there. It's not bolted down, it's just sitting up on there. But what we're going to do now is raise this up. We're going to go and cut the radiator support out. And then we also need to trim. What's stopping us from lowering it all the way down is our steering box is hitting. So we have to trim a little bit off of this, but that's fine because we're not mounting the radiator on the inside. We're mounting the radiator on the outside here to give us room for electric fans. So come along for that. What I also did a little while ago was hammered out that dent that I made. So yeah, I was tired of looking at it, so I went ahead and knocked that out. So trying to get myself motivated to work back on here. I really like, that's the stance with the engine in there. It is on casters, but our gap is not looking too bad. So the time we go and put that thing on air ride and get that thing lower, I really like where it's sitting. So in order to get the cab down, sitting on the cab mounts, we need to go and work on this. So follow along on that process. We're gonna go and set this radiator inside there once we go and cut it out, build that bottom bracket up, and then boom, we're off to the races on that. All right, got this cut out of right here. So that freed up a bunch of room. So we might reuse this, but I also have the stock radiator support from the bus that came with this radiator. So I might use that because it's longer. So we don't actually have to add any material here. We can just go and cut it off of that one and pretty much scab it into this one. So we'll see what we do, but that's probably most likely what we do. What I also need to do is probably cut this off right here, this little lip, because I want to get that radiator sitting in here. So a lot of this probably going to get trimmed. So we'll see. We'll lower it down and probably take the hood back off. and then slip that radiator in there and see where we're at. Alright, don't have to clearance much. Let me get the light. But as you can see, way too tight up in there. So what I want to do is just chop some of that radiator support out. So it's nice and clearanced. So I'm not using a whole bunch of this anyway. So if we go and clearance that, that'll let it sit down, and then we're going to support it from the bottom anyway. So it's plenty of support all in there for this front. So not too worried about cutting out an inch or so out of it. So we're going to raise it back up and do that quick. Alright, so we made a lot of clearance. Made a lot of clearance in here, so went and cut it twice. We'll go and straighten that up a little bit. But when we look down in here for that steering, we got a ton of room now. So it was hitting before. Kind of hard to see in there, but oops, sorry. Camera's moving. But yeah, way down in there is the steering box. It all fits now. All right, so now let's go pick up the radiator and see how that fits. All right, so doing a little bit of the fitting the radiator in there. That cross piece that went to kind of the front grille had to come out, so I was hitting. So I'm gonna go pick up the radiator and set it in there. One thing that was happening is I was hitting my intercooler, bottom intercooler outlet was hitting this. So that's gonna get really interesting really quick on where that's gonna sit and how we're gonna get past that. So yeah, I'm gonna lift it up and try to get some of the screws in there and see if we can't get this radiator and intercooler set in here. Let's see where this gets us. This thing's pretty heavy. Yep. All right. That's gonna be oh boy. Yeah, so really tight fit. Let me show you guys here. So yeah, there's the top. That's not gonna work. And then the bottom is in the frame rails down there. So I think what I'm gonna do is lift it up and set it inside the frame rails for now and see how far we get to the top here. I don't think it needs to go all the way to the top, it just needs to go somewhere close. But I did see that these holes do line up, so I want to go and raise it up to at least where they line up. Not a big deal if they don't, but it'd be nice if they just lined up where I can bolt it in and go from there. So go pull this back. Alright, I think I need to go and cut that bottom frame rail out. And then we can get it at least pushed in. I want this at least as high as we can go, so it can go right here. That'll fit really nice. Intercooler, we'll make it work. We're gonna have to weld a tight 90 on there. Same with the bottom radiator. We can get creative with that as well. So what I'm gonna do is go and cut this out right here, and that will give us enough room for the bottom intercooler boot, because I think what we're gonna have to do is go around here anyway to the back, so that can get all cut out. So I'm gonna fire up the plasma and get that cut out. I think what I want to do is 45 that, but I'm not going to do it now. It's easier to remove material later, but we can go and smooth all that out, weld it all in. Yeah, because yeah, the radiator is going to mount to this somehow. So these frame horns don't really do much, but I don't want to hack too much off now and regret it. So we're going to leave it like that. That'll get the intercooler pipe through here. And then, well, yeah, we'll worry about routing that through there later. So, yep, that's what it's going to be for a minute. Got the radiator in there, so let's back up. So got it in there, I think where I want it, so I put the top piece in there. So that's about as high as I can go, which is fine because we just have to go from here to there, which works. But what gets really interesting is this stuff, right? Yeah, that is not a lot of room, but if I go and take some aluminum 90s, cut it all the way back as far as I can, and maybe just pie cut it around here or up, something like that, try to get it around here, I think we can make it work. Same with down there in the bottom. Aluminum I can work with. The brass radiator, which they do sell aluminum ones, so I think I'm gonna just use this one for mock-up purposes and then get aluminum so I can go and modify these ends, because that one down there is really tight and doesn't give me a lot of room. So I want to do the same thing like I'm going to do the radiator, turn that one down, come around back here where I have a lot of room, and come back up over here. So this right here is all cast, and it's kind of like an extension with some pieces coming out of it for heater core and stuff like that. So what I'm thinking about doing is taking that off, making a plate, and that way I can put a 90 down, put a 90 over, do whatever I need to, and it'll give me, you know, that much more. So that's probably what I'll do, is probably machine or weld a new piece there. That I feel good about. Intercooler. I've worked with tighter areas. I'm gonna have to order the fans too, electric fans. Didn't leave myself a whole lot of room for electric fans, but I'm hoping I can fit a couple right here. So I know they don't take up a ton of room, especially if I get rid of that. I can put two little fans here and maybe one on the intercooler. I'm not too worried about the intercooler, but I am really worried about the radiator. So I think I can fit two. There's a decent amount of room. I'm gonna have to find two little ones with a lot of CFM to make that work. Make sure we don't overheat, because I do want to cruise around with this thing. So we are getting it down to where it should be. So I got the engine weight on there. It is on the casters, but I am really liking that. So that would be fully raised up in the, I guess, driving position. And then once we get all this radiator and cabin mounted, we can go and start cutting the coils and extending those control arms to get them where they need to go. So pretty excited about that. Excited to get that thing slammed down. Get the grill in there. Start making the front bumper. So I'm gonna make a custom front bumper either out of aluminum or stainless. I think I'm gonna go the aluminum route. It's just a little cheaper. And we can polish that thing out. It'll look nice. So when it's fully aired out, I want that bumper sitting on the ground. So if it's a 10-inch bumper or whatever it might be, that's what it'll be. So yeah, it's really coming together. I'm really liking where we're at. So I'm gonna finish working on the radiator, poking some holes, bolting it in the bottom, get that cross back in there, what we just took out. I'm gonna cut that little flange off. So here, let's take a look. So I'm gonna stick this on the workbench and cut this piece right here off. So if I go and cut that off flush with this rib right here, it'll fit where the radiator, so it won't hit the radiator. So yeah, I'll probably do that, and then that'll probably be it for tonight, and then we'll continue on tomorrow. All right, another day out here. So I went ahead and just kind of did a few things and got the grill in. So I brought in a bunch of parts, pretty much all the parts from the trailer. I had it in the trailer, but go-kart season starting up and building Coop's cart, so all that had to come out. I did get the grill, so we did put that in there. I got it all kind of mounted except for this corner. My holes didn't line up, really irritating me. But I also took apart the hood to get this in there because we're gonna start working on the radiator core support and the front support, and I didn't want this to sag down. So what happens is, with the no front support on this thing, it really wants to sag down quite a bit. So raised it up with the jack, put some jack stands underneath there where I like it, and then mounted that, so that will hold it a little bit more rigid. And I know the hood lines up well, so before I took the gull wings off, I went and looked at the fitment all around, and it looked really good. So that's where we're gonna keep it. So what we're gonna do next is, I have the old core support right there. It was too short because of that radiator's a lot longer now. So this is the core support from the newer radiator. Hi, George. So what we're gonna do is go and cut this out, because that's a lot longer, and then go and fit it in there. What we're also gonna do after that, if I have time, is get the steering hooked up. So we have to get that all cleaned up, get this off, put this somewhere, try to free this up as much as we can, and then we can go and get that steering in there. So What I also did is remove the air compressor. So yeah, that big air compressor was pretty much right in my way to where my intercooler was coming out. It was really tall, we're getting really close to the hood. And at the end of the day, it just looked really big and bulky in there. I really didn't like how it cluttered up my engine bay. And plus, once I get my master cylinder in here, the Hydro Boost, that was there, and the air compressor, it would have been really, really tight. So that had to go. So I ripped that out. I cut the bolts off of the top flywheel for the fan. So those had to go. They were really in my way. So just cleaned up a few things. I didn't put that on camera. Just didn't feel like dealing with it. So I just kind of blew through that one night after work. So yeah, let's work on the radiator core support, and then we'll get in here, we'll put the dash in, and then get the steering wheel column in, and yeah, we'll really get to start seeing where we're going to be at. So yeah, follow along with that. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I drilled out the rivets, and then it's kind of sandwiched in between. So the goal is to try to get this little piece of angle out, because this is the piece we want to keep. And I didn't want to go and cut it here, even though we have to cut somewhere in here, but I wanted to get this off, and then I can go and stick underneath the truck and really see. And then once I beat this out here, I'll show you kind of what my goal is. So yeah, let's go and try to get that out of there. The other one, I just took some chisels and got it out of there. That piece is junk. This is all I need right here. Alright, so this is going to be radiator core support. So the old one laying over there is almost identical in the shape of this little box. So half of it, or not even half, way more, is still in there. So all we need to do is extend and go there. So my plan is, I got some of this box tube right here, slide it right in there and pretty much make a sleeve, and then weld it back in. So yeah, put one on each side, slide it up. But what I need to do is get the right height. So I measured it somewhere around like 8 inches. So I'm gonna go do that. Maybe you didn't get to see all that because of the stupid door, but I got the dash in, and then that's the old doghouse from the original setup. Don't fit half bad, obviously not in the right location because the shifter hole is just where it is, but I think that'll give me something to work with. So what I really like, what really gets me excited, is the engine does not stick past the dash. I was so afraid that we were gonna have to modify the dash or something, but man, I couldn't be happier with that engine placement. That looks great. So just got to get that little hook off the back, and I think we can build a nice little doghouse around it. Sweet, I love it. So next what we'll do is we'll go get the steering and we'll shove the steering through there and see where we end up. First, what we got to do is cut this little bracket off right there for the brake hose. It's right in the way of the steering box, so we have to get that off there. Alright, got the wheel in with just 2 bolts holding it up. So what I had wrong, I was fighting for a couple minutes, is the dash was on top of the wheel mounting point. The dash had to go underneath and then up with the bolts. So I had to go and just fiddle with that. Once I figured that out, it went right on. So I ran into one little issue. So when we're looking down here, trying to get the steering shaft lined up, let me get in the right spot here. All right, so trying to line the steering shaft up, I can't go over any further because we're hitting right here where that clutch is. So what I'm going to do is take the clutch shaft out and then go and make this hole bigger, and then we should be able to line, it should line right up with my hind joint that's in there. So yeah, once we get that over there, it'll line right up. We'll have to cut that to length. Cut that to length, throw a few welds on there, and then we got our steering. So yeah, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Reason why I'm not too worried about that clutch is it runs into the frame anyway, so yeah, that all has to go. So yeah, I'm gonna climb back in there and unhook that, and then we'll go and take the grinder and cut that firewall up a little bit more. All right, it was that easy just to cut that little bit out of there. This is the inside for just the molding. We'll hang on to that. Put it over here in my junk pile. So now we have to cut more out of the top. I'm blowing holes in my ship. I hate to cut it apart, but it needs to work. All right, so let's bring you somewhere where you can actually see what's going on. Whoa, don't follow me. All right, So, still hitting, but that's just because I can't bring it over. The steering column kind of pisses me off because it's pretty much bound shut up in here. I would love to be able to move that. I just don't know if I can. So, yeah, I think that's gonna be perfect. Woo, boy, yeah. Do I even try? I think we just mark it, cut it. Okay, that's where it needs to slide up to. So we need to cut somewhere right there. Then it should be able to slide in there. All right, I'm gonna think about it. I might put it in the vise, see if we can't maybe heat this up a little bit and see if we can't get that to slide, get that to move. If we can get that to move, that'd be freaking amazing. Because then we'll be able to get this together a lot easier. Mud dauber? Okay. Yep. Alright, so yeah, I'm gonna go pull the steering column back out and we're gonna go and work with that shaft a little bit. Alright, so the plan is I went and cut the nasty stuff where that clamp was. It clamped on there. So cut that off. I'm going to go and get this cleaned up with a file. And then I'm going to go and clean this shaft up. So why we got so much beyond me. But right here is all chewed up. So I'm probably going to go and cut that off right there anyway, because right here is where we need a cut. So I'm probably going to cut it here and then clean all this up, get it nice and shiny, and then hopefully it slides in and out of there really nice. So we'll be able to put the steering column in, slide it down to the knuckle that's on the steering box, and in the future be able to maybe take it apart. So that's my plan. All right, so we got this to slide real nice. I put some grease on there, and then we went ahead and welded the Borgeson U-joint. So it's a 36 spline to a 3/4 hex. So the reason why I welded it is because I couldn't find a 36 spline to a 3/4 hex. So all I did was take a 3/4 round and welded it on there. I feel comfortable enough that that ain't going nowhere. And yeah, so yeah, what we'll do is once we get it all back together, we'll put another clamp. I saved the one that came on there, and you just clamp that tight, and that shouldn't go anywhere. Also, all I did was cut about 3-4 inches off, or if you're talking to somebody else, that's at least 10. So yep, we'll let that cool, and then we'll go and throw that back in the truck. All right, got 3 out of the 4 bolts in there. I'll get the other one, it dropped underneath the truck. But let's go and see how we're sitting up here. So, not bad. Sweet. Oh, look at that. We got steering all set up. I need to go and make sure the steering wheel's straight before I go and slide the splines on there. What I was nervous about is this was going to be all the way at 180 at the bottom, but no, we're sitting really good. So let me go and reclock the steering wheel, and then we're good to go. Steering wheel looks good, so I like where that's sitting. Just need to give that a couple smacks. Got my big hammer here. Let me get you up here so you can actually see what we're doing. Let me get my flashlight. All right, we're there. All right, so just what I was doing, there's a little kind of just edge there, and then a set screw. So I beat it down until the set screw is in that groove, and then we don't have to worry about it coming loose. Sweet. This was a huge accomplishment for me to get done. I was a little nervous about how this steering was going to work, but it worked better than expected, so I feel really good. Still not out of the woods yet with the steering, because the drag link that goes from driver side to passenger side, damn it, still hits the oil pan. So we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna clearance that. We got steering, so now that'll help move this truck in and out of the shop. So it's kind of been stationary here under my lift, because now that the motor and trainer is in here, turning the wheel is about impossible. So now we got steering. Hell yeah. So yeah, let's walk you through where we're at. So boom, got that connected. So that's the Chevy P30 steering box all hooked up. Then it goes through the firewall, right there, that little spot that we opened up. So I'll just get some paper template and we'll start closing that in once we're ready. And then the inside is just all factory. So yeah, nothing's changed up in there. I'm gonna run the factory steering wheel. I just love the look of it. Love that steering column. So what we are gonna have to mess with is those pedals. We're gonna have to go and heat them up and bring them over to, a little bit more to the driver's side, make room for our gas pedal. But that I'm not too worried about. I feel pretty good about where we're at. So not a whole lot, but huge accomplishment. We got steering, and then we're gonna have the front cord support here in a little bit. So yeah, I feel like this has been a huge milestone for this project. All right, so I realized after editing the video, I kind of left you guys hanging on the radiator cord support. I kind of was halfway through that project, then decided to start working on the steering wheel. Why? Not really sure. I think I just kind of got fed up with my batteries constantly dying on my drilling out those welds. So I just kind of stopped on that project and started on a project that I knew I was going to get done during this video. So the steering column. So I really wanted to get the steering column done so I can go and start moving the truck back and forth and steering it with the big motor in there and the tranny. It was really hard to get this thing in and out of the shop, but now with the steering in here, I can go and move it in and out of the shop and get some other projects on the lift. So sorry that I left you guys hanging on that cord support. I didn't get it in. It's ready to be welded into the truck. So on the next video, we'll finish that project. We'll get that in there, and then we'll start working on some other projects on this truck. Probably start working on the firewall, cleaning up the firewall, and pedals, and a few other things, and start making this truck really look like something. So thanks for watching. Thanks for all the support. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, please. I love reading the comments and interacting with you guys on YouTube, so please comment if you can. See what you guys want to see on this thing next, and I appreciate it. Thanks for watching.